would you say is the theme of how you choose to design? What is your core values? What are your guiding principles? What is your mission and vision?
That's a beautiful question.
In itself, we also need to maintain the ego of the clients itself, because how to make them.
It feels like, because it's been, I think, long enough now that the trees are growing in and there's roots, so you feel like you're in a place that isn't finished. And so it goes really, I think, with how a lot of designers feel about their work.
Hi, with John Hardy here at Jia Curated 2025.
Tomorrow is bigger, and then also same crowd, like more
kind of counter narrative, right? You have all these high-end boutiques and everything, and well, let's put it in like a Chernobyl-esque, sort of abandoned theme park,
just
right?
Need the abandoned Ferris wheel.
Yeah, to fully finish. I'm really curious, do you see progress in the belief to actually get more of the, let's say, the plastic out of the rivers, the glass out of the rivers, and what sort of positive signals do you see that the culture is changing?
Right. On the spot. Yes. I've been speaking for 8 hours straight.
Eu viajei em Brasil em 2002. Então, eu aprender português. Eu conheci o mundo quando você nasceu. Funny thing, just as I arrived in Bali years ago, this Brazilian was being born. And now, here we are, meeting in 2025 at Jia Curated. Feels like Bali itself has grown up alongside us. Welcome to this episode of the Bali Business Review, where we explore the new currents shaping design, culture, and investment on the island. Watch this episode. All right, this is Jing with another episode of the Bali Business Review today, where I'm stepping inside an abandoned theme park here on the east coast of Bali, nearby Sonora. Today is a day of the Jia Design and Art Festival, encompassing a wide range of domestic and international designers that have brought innovative ideas, culture to the hospitality experience through art, through furniture, through fixtures, through all manners of manifestations of design. As we explore this park and this festival day, we hope to discover and expect to find interesting interviews with some of the people who are putting together the innovative ideas that will guide the future of hospitality. We'll look at ideas that can forward and communicate new narratives, extend the concept of Tahiti Karana correctly as we move towards more sustainable, move towards more progressive and intellectual vision for Bali. So the ideas begin here on the island, and hopefully they propagate elsewhere out to other parts of the world and make Bali a capital of sustainable, harmonious, eco-tech hospitality guidance. Come with me on this episode and we'll learn more about how design is affecting the future of the hospitality industry and the property industry here in Bali. Now, the reason why design is so important is if you look at this chart, this is an Oxman Krebs cycle, and it describes the evolution of how the scientific process moves into an engineering process, moves into a design process, and then moves into an art culture process. If we're ever to fix the recurring problems that we see with overdevelopment and unsustainable growth here in Bali, then to understand that how we affect things from an art and cultural perspective is fundamental. Based on this diagram you can see here, that design festivals such as the one here held in Padangalak in Sonora are an attempt to change the culture of how people perceive hospitality, or an attempt to change the culture by moving the clock backwards from culture back to design. Designs that support and inhabit the ecosystem correctly, that use materials and workflows and people that allow for the correct balance in the ecosystem, such as removing plastic from rivers, such as restoring work back to native artisans. These are arts, cultures, and designs that fulfill a promise of Tahiti Karana, which is harmony with people, harmony with nature, and harmony with the design. And this effort to move the narrative forward in a direction such that hospitality organizations throughout Bali will adopt a culture of artistic expression using materials, craftsmen, and ideas that benefit the ecosystem instead of taking value away. These are ultimately our vision of what moves Bali ahead in terms of an industry. So let's explore some more and see what else people have in store for us. I feel like I got here too early. Oh, hey, this is an interesting concept. This is actually very good. There's no people here yet, but I know the story here. So Sungai design comes from Sungai Watch. Sungai Watch is started by, I think it was a Frenchman, Garde. Garde is basically collecting all this river plastic in Bali's rivers, which unfortunately, the majority of plastic that washes up on the beaches is a result of, well, let's face it, it's local people throwing, Balinese people, not Javanese, throwing their trash into the rivers, such as these containers and all these food waste products and all this stuff, right? So their team goes ahead and they assemble all these plastic objects and they form the plastic objects into this material here, right? This material, oh my God, whoops, I dropped it. Okay, but this material here is quite hefty, it's quite solid, and it feels surprisingly like concrete. But anyhow, let me put it back. Once this material has been utilized, they form all kinds of, this reclaimed plastic can be used to make frames and slats, and the result are these chairs. Thank you, KDK. Thank you for being a helpful citizen to restore the condition of the exhibit. So let's take a seat in one of these. Oh wow, surprisingly comfortable. How does it feel for you? Is it comfortable for you? That chair there? Yes. Okay. So yeah, Sungai Watch, taking river plastic over here and turning that river plastic back into furniture, which completes the ecological cycle in a helpful way. Good job, Sungai Design. Good job.
True. I feel like my message is always to see the architect as maybe as a coordinator rather than as a person that gets inspired.
Okay.
And that you find different guides. In the different places in which you work, there is always people that already live there, that understand the ecosystem and ask questions, connect with the people, learn from them, and then try to create not just thinking on yourself, but the entire, your neighbors, the animals, the trees.
Right.
The more you connect with it, the more you fall in love, and that allows you to actually, like our ancestors used to, connect with all the passive energy, the sun, the wind, all the elements, and then you can have a much beautiful kind of experience, living experience of the space that is connected to the exterior, to what is around you.
Okay, so would you recommend, so this is actually a constant theme I keep on looking at, right? Which is, do people who enter a neighborhood have maybe the wrong questions before they enter?
The opportunity to build in this paradise that is Earth,
Right.
and the lack, because it's a blessing to have the resources, the possibility, especially in Bali, for example,
Yeah.
it's such a sacred land,
Correct.
is to kind of take that responsibility and say how what I do is going to affect others. Just by asking the questions, you can think how I'm going to relate in terms of traffic, I'm blocking my neighbor's view, I'm
That's it.
respecting the existing culture.
That's it.
Simple, basic questions. And sometimes if you manage to reply them, the answers are all simple. And you can integrate so harmoniously that
Right.
actually your financial returns grow. And that is already proven in multiple projects. That we have done.
I absolutely agree. And I've proven that actually by looking at even the data analysis that Ubud tends to have actually one of the healthiest location qualities for return on investment. And I think it's because there is that harmony with thinking about the ecosystem. And I think the harmony is ultimately, in my opinion, it's a good financial incentive because it creates the correct foundation for cultural sustainability in that. And people want timeless design, but I think they really should ask the question, how do I create timeless culture, right? How do I create like a timeless culture that inhabits in the space that I live in? And the first step is to understand. Okay, that is fascinating. I'm trying to condense everything into one core value. It's Trihitakata now, right? This idea of harmony with the divine, harmony with nature, harmony with people. Do you think that that can be a meeting point between the Balinese, between foreigners? Is that like a good core value for everybody to kind of think about so that we can all sort of agree that those principles can be honored, and then therefore promoting those principles gives everybody a sort of a standard meeting point in opinions of where to meet? Yeah.
For sure, I think that is a beautiful philosophy that I think the Balinese have taught me and taught so many of us by being here. I feel ultimately what the invitation is for everybody to try their best to work from a place of abundance, compassion and understanding that what we do has a repercussion on others.
Right.
And yeah, what we define as harmonious might differ from one person to another.
Right.
But taking the space rather than rushing into design and taking the space to ask those questions, to reflect, to analyze, to study, to see the environment, to talk to the people, you will get the cues, and it's just magic. And actually, the storyline became so much beautiful. You feel so much connection to that piece of land that you have, to that community that you belong, because you insert yourself, you're part of something greater.
Correct.
And I think, yeah, you know, we're humans, we make mistakes. It's not about perfection, but it's about intention.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that. I think you're right. I think
More freedom is more responsibility.
of course, there's a magical word, or we're getting close to independence for Indonesia's 80th anniversary, and I'm reminded of an interview I did with the Ubud, the basically the king. I guess he's not a king, but is Pat Chokorda Raka Kartiasa, right? So he reminded me that Indonesia is about Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, which is unity and diversity. And once I kind of saw that, I realized there's diversity in people, there's diversity in geography, but there's also diversity in epochs, and where different epochs have different, let's say, zeitgeist, right, for what people are valuing. And I like the way that you see it in the long game, that there's no mistakes, there's no anything, that we're all in this learning process together, and whatever we've built, we can, with the right intention, actually get it to get it back on path. We have much more time ahead of us than behind us. So that part is, I think, quite enlightened. Actually, yeah. So good stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for yeah. We finally met. This exhibit is probably one of the most remarkable things I've discovered so far. This has been put together by Susie Aneta in a testimony across the broad spectrum of young Indonesian architects, actually not young, across, in her words, all ages, genders, ethnicities, backgrounds, and career stages. So what you're seeing around us are small models that have been built by all the, I guess, curated architects to represent different range of typologies, including private homes, public galleries, restaurants, and retail stores and airports. So I'm going to walk us through some of the more interesting exhibits that show how this vernacular in architecture is being spoken about directly from some of these exhibits. This exhibition right here brings urgency to Balinese craftsmanship. You can see here, there's some mannequins that are assembling this. Wow, somebody had to join all these pieces with pieces of string here, as you can see. But the cultural gravity here is brought to us by Dirgantarad, Dirgent, and Uni Utama, right, of DDAP. So what I find to be fascinating is that they're looking at the ways that people in Ubud join together. These are called bades. Bades are funeral cremation towers that have been made for basically ceremonial purposes when somebody has passed away, and they're encapsulating the traditions and the generational knowledge and communal efforts here to incorporate it into their designs, which is great because this is a type, I think, of architecture that thinks about its impact on how to preserve cultural heritage and intangible culture in workmanship and craftsmanship. So that's kind of like what is also a part of great design. It's the process is being celebrated, the process is being revitalized as well. We move on to probably one of the most famous proponents of using bamboo architecture, and that is, of course, here at Laura Hardy's exhibit at Ibuku. Ibuku means my mother. So the design by Ibuku here, this fascinating design over here. So this one's set above the Ayung River, one of the principal rivers of Bali. This formation of terraces that give the topography some framing and expands into the surrounding jungle. The living pavilions include open kitchen, riverside gym, and a separate 2-bedroom guest house. There's children bedrooms that are linked together through interconnected passageways. Includes teak interiors, engineered timber, and a copper roof in a glass envelope. The combination of glass, copper, and bamboo does offer a really tasteful approach towards the eco-centric architecture vernacular that we sometimes see. This model is brought to us by Raw and incorporates multimodal design and elements that are really fascinating. It almost looks like a favela with interconnecting stairways and different pockets, and I'm pretty sure that maybe the architect would not have appreciated that interpretation of it. But what I do appreciate is that they address issues such as urban flooding, heat island effects, material scarcity, and there is some thought about how to incorporate rainwater for agriculture, aquaculture, and thick walls, which essentially reduce the need for energy expensive air conditioning and power consumption, and also the heat island effect. These are really, really interesting concepts, and I like this one in particular. Vegetation is not an afterthought, but an integral part of the architecture. So an idea of how to actually incorporate vegetation to this design such that it creates a self-regulating microclimate, which is pretty cool. Having interviewed Andrea Martin just a few episodes earlier at Potato Head for their 15th anniversary, I'm delighted to find that his airport over here is also represented in this diorama here. So this is the airport design for Banyuwangi. Banyuwangi is the city in Java that is actually probably closest to Bali. It's an East Java city that sits on the opposite side of Gilimanuk and is the jumping off point for a lot of cargo, people on road trips, on overland journeys from Java to see Bali. So the international airport was designed by Andrea Martin and envisioned as a gateway that would welcome visitors to the regional and cultural identity. So it's actually inspired from an Osing house roof, which prioritizes natural lighting and ventilation. I guess we can see that element incorporated here in the open skylights at the top, which is pretty cool. There's a cross section of the airport as we can peer inside of it through this section over here. It allows us to appreciate some of the columns and beams that have created, I guess, open spaces. Yeah, cool, fascinating. All right, this is for my buddy Reddit. I finally found your book. Sorry, got it upside down. I finally found your book here at the bookstore over here on, God, why do I keep on forgetting the name of this event? It's called Jia Curated 2025. So this has been a hunt to find the history of Bali in this book, and I'm so delighted I'll be reading it religiously, but also getting insights from how to narrate future market insight videos from insights shared here. So if you haven't gotten it, I normally don't promote any products on this channel yet, but I think this is a good product to be educated. I'm a firm believer in education. So think about how to understand the past if you don't want to make mistakes in the future.